guys, Automated Garage back today. Got another 6.0 here in the shop, 2006. It was brought to me after being at two other shops. Guy said they threw parts at it, did IPR, I think did ICP. Said they couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. We have a crank, no start. I have not even looked at this truck yet. I just pulled it up here to the shop with the Rhino. So we're gonna go through this together. I'm gonna show you how I diagnose whatever we find out's going on with it. So we're gonna start out with hooking the tough book up to it. I guess I'll spin it over real quick and let y'all see that it is a crank, no start, and we'll go from there. So. I need to put the battery charger on it too, sounds like. Let me do that while this gets going. All right, so we got our Auto Ingenuity opened up here. We'll get everything pulled up. Let's go FICM, main power, FICM sync, which FICM sync is it communicating with the injectors. You will see it change to, where's it at? That'll change to 1 when we go to crank the truck if it's communicating with the injectors correctly. Injector control pressure, ICP voltage. We'll make sure we don't have a bias, which that's right. That's right there within range. IPR duty cycle. If we don't hit 500 on ICP, of course, it's not going to fire. If this is maxing out and just holding at 84, then this is doing all it can to try to produce high pressure oil. That shouldn't change much. This is going to change to 1 if the FICM is working correctly, and we shouldn't see our voltage drop that much on the FICM. So let's see what happens when we crank it. Oh crap, I lost computer power because I'm plugged into the cigarette lighter over there. And we got some weak batteries here. All right, so we're obviously not producing high pressure oil, and it's got it's not even get up into the 100s, which I don't know how long this truck's been sitting. Still, it shouldn't take it that long to build some pressure. I'm gonna let these batteries charge for a little while. So first things first, other than a high pressure oil leak, what could keep us from producing high pressure oil? We could check real quick. Well, we're gonna check the oil level. I don't know any backstory behind this truck. Maybe it's got some major oil leaks. Hadn't been underneath it yet or anything. Let's see what the oil level's at, and who knows, maybe it's 1.5 gallons or something low on oil, which would cause you this problem also. So let's see what we got. Well, we got the typical dipstick broke off on the tube here. It's got some really dirty oil in it. Leaving some trash right here on the end of the dipstick. I'll tell you what I miss also. They should have used the same style dipstick like they use on the 7.3, because it's a lot easier to see, I think. Well, we got oil. That's not the problem. It might be dirty, but we got oil in it. All right, so now we know we're not producing high pressure oil. We know we have oil in the truck to produce oil pressure with. The only thing I didn't check earlier when we were cranking on it, which we're going to do this now in just a second, is we're going to spin it over again and make sure that our oil pressure on the dash actually registers, which that's going to let you know that your low pressure pump is actually producing at least somewhat some oil pressure to eliminate the low pressure pump not feeding the high pressure pump up here. So I'm going to give these batteries just a second. We're going to check that. If that registers, then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to pressure test the high pressure oil system here with our pressure tester from Accurate Diesel that I always use, that y'all have seen here on the channel before if you've watched. So I'll show y'all hooking that up here in a minute after we do this other part. And man, look at what a mess somebody's just made of this engine bay here. Let me turn y'all around. I mean, look at this. Just dangling down on top of the turbo. Wiring harness is sitting on top of the degas bottle bracket there. I did look here just a minute ago. This truck is studded. It's got head studs. You can see this one down here. You probably can't without a light, but it's got head studs. It is EGR deleted. But just like oftentimes, it's had several people probably mess with it that have made more of a mess of things than not. It's got a new IPR on the back, which he did mention to that to me when he called. You can see it back there. It does not have its heat shield. Let me zoom in. It doesn't even have its heat shield around it. It's sitting back there behind it. So they put a new IPR in, and who knows if they used an actual OEM one or what. I would not use anything but OEM on that. So let's check the oil pressure on the dash here. There it is. All right, so we're producing oil there. All right, so we're gonna take this nice tool here from Accurate Diesel and pressure test our oil system and see where we got a leak at. So not only do you need something like this, but you can do this through your ICP sensor. I'm not a fan of that because it doesn't take the IPR out of the loop. You got to put voltage to the IPR. You can't do it too long, you can burn it up. This is the foolproof way to me to test the high pressure oil system. Other thing you'll need is your ICP socket here, or sorry, IPR socket here. There's no other way to take that out in my estimation without using one of these. That's the easy way to do it. So we got to gain access to some stuff for me to get my hand back there. So we're gonna take the air intake off, remove the degas bottle and the fickum, and then I can get my hand back there to unplug the IPR, slide this socket on. We'll feed some extensions out underneath the degas bottle bracket out this way, and we'll be able to back that out, then screw this in, hook it to our shop air right here, and then wait and see where we got a leak at. All right, we got everything pulled off to the point of where I can get access to the IPR. Other than the obvious here, I'll undo this little ground wire that goes to that back manifold bolt. I actually pull the back manifold bolt out because my big hands don't fit down here to do this without taking that stud out. So that's one way to get a little better access down there. IPR is unplugged. We're now going to feed our socket and extensions down in there and break that loose. All right, so there is all my extensions going down to the IPR and the IPR socket down there. I have a swivel on the end to make the turn to hook up to it. So now we're going to break it loose. So there's our IPR we took out. I'm actually not sure if it's OEM or not. I think it is. But the screen looks good on it. I mean, it should. It's brand new, supposedly. So we're going to take this and cover it up with paper towel and keep it clean. We're getting ready to screw our air tester in. So hooking this up is just as simple as working the hose down in from over here. All I do is spin the valve in with my hand and get it snug. I don't put a wrench back there or nothing on it. You don't ever need to do that. It seals up just fine, just twisting the hose by hand. We're gonna hook it to shop air and see what we hear. All right, I already hear a leak. Sometimes it takes a little while. It's a pretty good one. And it sounds like it's the passenger side. Good grief, who put that on there like that? Or twist the whole thing out of the valve cover, getting the damn oil cap off. There it is. You can feel the air coming out of there. All right, guess we're pulling the passenger side valve cover. The first one I'm gonna do, I'll put this back on to kind of hide that noise for a minute. We're gonna listen down there in the crankcase vent portion. Can't hear it like that, even if it was leaking like that, but you can hear if you got much of a leak by putting your ear down there on it. So that's what I'm gonna try to do now and make sure it's not a leak I hear over there. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just stick this cheater bar that I use right there over the hole. Oh, I got a bunch of air coming out of there too. I feel it blowing on my face. So now, I guess we're gonna pull both. We got something leaking a good bit. Probably not as bad as this side, but something's leaking on both sides. All right guys, so that's how I access the passenger side valve cover. You take your glow plug controller, unbolt the 2 bolts to hold it on, unplug your ICP sensor, undo your positive from your battery here that goes and powers your glow plugs. Take that whole harness, lay it over here on top of the motor like that. What else I do? I did this heater hose. I tuck it up here. Sorry, I'm shaking. I'm leaning over. Tuck the heater hose up there. Put your vacuum line that goes to your heater valve there. Undo your mass air, not mass air, sorry, your MAP hose. And then you pretty much got access to everything. I had to take a clamp right there and I hold the injector harness over out of my way so it's not flopping over. And now before I unbolt this, what I'm gonna do is take compressed air. I'm gonna blow all along the top and the edge really good, because when you open this up, you don't wanna be dumping trash and crap down on the motor, because we all know where that ends up. Either ends up in your oil cooler or it'll end up stopping up your screen on your IPR. So cleanliness is godliness here on 6 liters. So I'm gonna undo all these valve cover bolts, get that off. We'll turn the air back on and we'll see exactly where it's leaking from. You can feel it all right here around this standpipe. You can hear the difference right there. We're gonna have to pull the high pressure oil rail because it's the passenger side. You can't pull the whole thing out because of the HVAC box here. So we got our standpipe out, focus. And there's the culprit right there. You see where that O-ring is totally split in half. Now the dummy plug on the other hand didn't really look busted, but had a bunch of pieces of rubber and crap on it. It came out all gummed up looking with some stuff there. Now it doesn't look great. So what I did notice, this does have the plastic piece up at the top. I guess it has it at the bottom too. But I wonder what brand it is. I don't see a marking on it. And the standpipe here, I don't see any brand on this one either. But I wouldn't be surprised if we pull the lower part out and it'd be a Dorman. All right guys, we are back on the 0660 here, and I'm gonna show you all the parts we got. I'm not exactly sure quite where we left off, but we're gonna show y'all what we're doing today here to cure this whole high pressure oil leak. And we're actually doing an injector now too, because long story short, he called me and said, hey, did you check the check engine light? I said I didn't see one when I cranked it up. Now this thing's been going through cycles of trying to crank different mechanics. Battery's been run down, charged up back and forth. So I guess it could have got lost then. But anyways, he said I had a number 4 cylinder contribution that was down. So I threw the Fickum back on it, did a buzz test even when we had it apart to the point y'all saw it last. And cylinder 4 didn't buzz at all. I checked the connector, I checked the wiring harness, no chafed wires, nothing burn up in the plug, nothing like that. So we have an electrical issue within the injector. So we got a new injector for number 4, OEM that we got from Homer Skelton Ford, along with these other parts right here I'm gonna show you, and then we're gonna get into it and get this thing done. So there's our new updated OEM standpipes part number. There's our new updated dummy plug part number right there. And there's our new, rebuilt OEM injector right there, ready to go in. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna pull this high pressure oil rail off, because the lower part of the standpipe is stuck in there just like always. And I keep saying I'm gonna try to come up with a tool that I've heard of some people doing that you can put down in there to pull that lower pipe out without doing the high pressure oil rail. But instead of me spending an hour making a tool today, I'm just gonna take the time to pull the rail off. We'll get the standpipe out. We'll have this side put back together. We'll just set the valve cover on it, keep dust out of it. We're gonna go over there and tackle the other side, do number 4 injector, and do standpipe and dummy plug on that side. So I called the customer, I told him, I said, hey, if this was my truck, I'd go and do the standpipe and the dummy plug on the other side, especially not knowing the history behind the standpipe and dummy plug over here. If this side blew, if that one, I had an air noise anyways. It was not near as prominent as this side, but we had one over there. So it needs to be done. So he said, yeah, go ahead and do it. So we're pulling the rail off anyways to do the injector, so there would be no excuse to not go on and put new ones in there. So we're gonna tackle all this. I'll show y'all pulling the rail on this side. Other side is gonna be the exact same thing, actually easier. This is the side that's a pain in the butt because of the HVAC box. We'll show doing the injector real quick, maybe not necessarily in depth, but I'll show y'all throwing that injector in. throwing this all together. We're gonna pressure test it one more time with the air tester, and then we'll be good to throw it together and crank it up. All right, so as much as I would love to video doing all this, by the time I get laying up here and get my hands on there, y'all ain't gonna see jack. So what you have and what I use here, so you have a T30 is all your high pressure oil rail bolts right here. So the only ones that are hard to get to are those two that are right. There's two that are next to the HVAC box there. And sometimes, depending on which one of these you have, it's hard to fit in between there. So if you have to, sometimes you just take it out and you have to stick it in the bolt and use you a wrench, open in or closed in, whatever you can work down in there, and turn it a little bit by little bit till you can do it with your fingers. Now, the same thing goes for when you go to torque it. What I usually do is torque all the ones that I can get my torque wrench to, and I go strictly by feel on those and do them in the correct order still, because there's a sequence for this. I'll show you all that. But do it by feel, because you can't get a torque wrench there. Unless you have the cab raised, there's no way to torque that with a torque wrench, not accurately. So anyways, let's get into it. So the customer says that these injectors probably only have about 15,000 miles on them. So this is a new customer. He actually, I think, found me from YouTube. Lives here close, and wanted me to fix it because he said 2 other people could not find the problem, and I told him it's just a simple high pressure oil leak. And they were sitting there throwing IPRs and an ICP sensor, and he said they knew it was only making 100-something pounds of high pressure oil. So I don't know. I guess people just don't understand how these work. They're not complicated once you know them. All right, we have all of our bolts out. We're going to take our valve cover gasket off. As you can tell, it is not an old one. There's no need in replacing it. We don't want to crack it while we're working to get this rail off. And you don't have to beat and bang and pry on this to get it off. All it takes is some gentle pressure, just like that. You just get it raised up, and then it will come right off. And you want to try to raise it straight up like that. And not beat, bang it around on top of the injectors. You're going to let it drain. I usually tilt it like that, make it all come out that back nipple, so you feel like you're draining most of it. And then we're going to raise it up. We're going to check all our nipple cups while we're doing this. What really gets me every time I do this is having to do this just to get this lower portion of the standpipe out. That's why I love to make that tool, to not have to do this, even though it doesn't really take that long. See, that O-ring's okay, but you need to replace the whole thing. This appears to be OEM. I don't see any stamping on it. It doesn't look like a Dorman or nothing. So, all right, we are going back in with our rail. Just want to go nice and easy, and the goal is to go straight down, just like that. Make it go into the injectors nice and easy. And now we're not going to push it all the way down. Just now we got our lower portion of our standpipe here. I've lubed the O-rings up. And the reason you have to do this way is because of the HVAC box. So now that we have that in, we can go on and make sure that our old rail is set all the way down. And we can start our bolts back in. All right, we got all of our bolts in, just hand tight. You do not want to snug this up at all because this torque sequence is important for this. Don't ever just throw this in and torque it down. This basically torques like a head. You go from the inside out. I'm going to show y'all a picture, a diagram of the torque sequence and the torque spec, which is 10 foot-pounds right here. So I'm going to get busy now and torque this down, and then we'll show putting the upper part of the standpipe and the dummy plug in. We're going to torque both of those down, and I'll give you all the spec for that when we get to it. This first time around, I don't even go all the way down to the torque spec. I'm just trying to get them all evenly snugged up. And then the next time around, I actually go to the torque spec. All right, we're putting our upper portion of our standpipe in, and it is very important, whether you use grease or semi-lube or whatever, but lube these O-rings up. You don't want to tear an O-ring because it'll really piss you off when you put this together, and then you have a problem no sooner than you get it running, or a couple months later because you slightly tore an O-ring when you put it in. Make sure you get them started by hand, and then we're going to put a regular 3/8 ratchet on it and snug them up, and then we're going to torque them, and these get torqued to 60 foot-pounds. And we got this side done. We're going to set our valve cover gasket back on. Always pressure test all this before I really final assembly everything, because there's nothing worse than putting something together and then fighting with it again. So we even cleaned our valve cover up. I hate to put stuff back on dirty. Don't take but a second. We're just going to stick us a bolt or two in it just to hold it. That'll keep everything clean. We'll leave that be for now. We're going to jump on the other side. So I wanted to show y'all real quick this injector problem. He was talking about the cylinder contribution problem and me figuring out that it was either wiring or an injector, one or the other. But I rolled out wiring. I didn't see any chafing unless there's a wire broke inside of the insulation, of course. So let me show you what I did here. So I try to keep a good injector on the shelf for doing this kind of stuff. So all we did was unplug number 4 and plugged in the injector, and I have it in the bag so it stays nice and clean. And we're going to do our injector buzz test, and you can hear it. So it's going to go through the whole cycle, and then it'll go one by one. 1, 2, 4. So that was as simple as that. Why that injector has an electrical problem, I do not know. I'm starting to wonder if they were real true OEM injectors or not. Not sure. I do know one thing, his oil is disgusting in this truck. I mean, when I pulled the dipstick, I actually had some trash on it. So I did look at the IPR screen, of course. I think I even showed that when we put the air test in there, but this thing needs an oil change for sure, because that's the life of these motors. You run trash running them and it just messes everything up. So I'm gonna set y'all up. We're gonna time lapse taking this whole other valve cover apart, pulling the high pressure oil off. I will slow it down and show y'all putting the injector in, and then we'll time lapse back together to the point of getting this thing cranked up and hearing a run, having it all fixed. Got my injector hold down loose. It's a T40. This is the only special tool that I recommend. This is just for getting your plug for your injector out of your head there. You can use, I believe it's a 17 millimeter socket. It's about the same diameter, and you can push it out that way. This tool works great though. I want to say it's like $12, something like that, but it works great. This is from Accurate Diesel also. So now, all I gotta do is pull or push my plug out, I mean. like that. Pushes the plug out. We're gonna pull our injector out. Always make sure your washer comes out with it, of course. New injector, lube it up, make sure it's got your washer on it. Make sure you take the little rubber tip off before you try to put it down in there. That'd be a no-no. So we got our O-rings all lubed up, including our plug right here. Just take your hold down, slide your hold down on. Has the little slot, lines up on the injector there. Your hold down just pulls your injector right down in there, just by doing it hand tight. Another thing I highly recommend, this is just a cheap set. I'm not even sure what the brand is on it. Anyways, I have a whole nice big set of these, and I have the longs and the shorts. If you're trying to use a normal short Torx on this, you're going to be rubbing into the injector, and you're not going to get a good straight shot on it. You're going to be trying to go at an angle. So you get these extended ones, and it gets you past the injector. Just push it up in so it clicks, just like that. Now we're going to torque our injector down to 26 foot-pounds. I'm going to double check all these others because one of those high pressure oil rails was not tight at all. Now, I'm going to put you back on time lapse. We're going to put our rail back on, our new standpipe, new dummy plug, put this valve cover on, air test it. Everything should be good, and then we'll reassemble the rest of it. Got the air tester hooked back up. Now, I know what you're gonna say. Oh, you got something else leaking. But when you pull these rails off, where the nipple cups go down in the injector, we've done drained all the oil out of this high pressure oil rail here. And the oil pressure itself is what seals those rings all up in there. And the other thing I didn't show you a minute ago was I did put some fresh oil on the top of that new injector to lubricate that O-ring up to make sure that was lubricated so you're not putting it in there dry. But anyways, this is normal. If I crank the truck over for a few minutes and build some high pressure oil and then do this again, that would quit and go away. I learned from experience because the first time I did this, I was like, holy crap, man, I got nipple cups and everything leaking. I checked all these nipple cups, they were all tight. You couldn't even wiggle any of them, so they were nice and stout in the rail still. When they're loose, I go on and replace that O-ring in the high pressure oil rail, which all these were fine. So don't be alarmed with that, because what you're hearing is oil bubbling in the top of the injector where the nipple cup is. You literally cannot even feel the air leaking out of it. It's more sound of the oil bubbling. But anyways, I learned that that's what that was the first time I started using that tool a while back. So we're gonna put this together and fire it up. And as with any 6 liter, you gotta go run the dog crap out of them and get all the air out of the high pressure oil system. It's not like a 7.3 where you can crank it up, rivet it several times, let it run for a minute. As soon as the oil's hot, you get the air out of the system. You got a lot more air to push out of these. So it's gonna be long starts for the first couple hours. If you drove this truck to town right now, made a few stops, it's gonna be long starts at first. After that, it's gonna push all the air out and you'll be good. So let's put it together. All right, we are all together. I just got to top the coolant off. I got the oil drain right now. I'm getting ready to change the oil filter. Hopefully these weak ass batteries are going to be charged up enough to prime this high pressure system and get it to fire up without doing too much cranking, because I don't think they got a whole lot in them. Battery charger's on, jump start. So we're going to do a little bit of cranking, I'm sure, to start it, but we're looking for 500 on our ICP here. Now keep in mind that the whole system is full of air. And this thing ain't spinning over near as fast as it should be because of these batteries. AutoZone ran out 2 new batteries. I looked and called the customer, and he had bought these, gave me his phone number that was underneath. They sent out 2 new batteries. So now we're gonna give it a try, and hopefully we can build some high pressure oil now since we got something to crank it with. There we go. Gotta have some hot batteries. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the video on the 6.0, going through diagnosing it with me, fixing some standpipes and some dummy plugs and throwing an injector in it, and getting his work truck back up on the road. It had been to 2 previous shops before it came here, so if you're in the Mid-South area, West Tennessee area, go to automedicgarage.com. You can get in touch with us. We'd love to work on your stuff and help you out if you're looking for that. But you can check us out at Facebook, Instagram, and Rumble also. And we got some merch on our website if you're interested. So it's Automatic Garage signing out. We'll holler at y'all later.